Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. Yes, you have been so, so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah, yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. Yes, when I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. So the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Till you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Sing it. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh,
I want to start out my talk today about what your yes and no means to you. What does your word mean to you? When I was a little kid, I've said I was not the greatest little kid that there was. My brothers and sisters weren't either, so just putting that out there. My mom and dad learned pretty quick that we weren't always the most honest kids. My mom and dad would leave, or my dad would go to work, and my mom would leave to go run grocery shopping or something like that. And we would sit there at the table doing like our homework and stuff, and we'd wait until she left the driveway, and we'd get up and do whatever we wanted. Whatever we weren't supposed to, we would get into. And there for a while, we were pretty bad, and my mom and dad were catching on, and so they would plan out stuff. Like my mom had a strategy that she would just come into the house really fast and like catch us doing whatever we weren't supposed to. Or she'd give us this like super long list of chores we had to do, and then if they weren't all done, she kind of had an idea, well, maybe they were doing something else instead of the jobs that we were supposed to do. My dad's strategy was just sneak into the house as quiet as he could, and we never would see him. So he'd catch us in whatever we were doing. So my dad, one time though, it was me and my brother, just me and Caleb left at home, and my dad knew that we were going to do something we weren't supposed to. And he looked at us and said, I want you to stay at the table, and I don't want you to get up, and I want you to do your homework or whatever. He said, but don't get up. I'll be right back. He was taking my brother to work. And so we both said, yes, sir. We said yes. We told him that we weren't going to get up from that table, and we watched until he got out of the driveway. We went to the window and saw him drive all the way until he was out of sight, and we went and jumped on the computer and played games the whole time. And my dad got back. We were so convinced that we could get away with it, that we set a timer for 30 minutes, and we said after that timer's done, we'll go back to the table, and we'll sit down, and we'll be acting like we're doing what we were supposed to be. Well, that timer went off, and my brother and I looked at each other and like, we can set it for like another 15 minutes or something. Like, we'll see him if he drives up anyway. And so we set it for another 15 minutes, and probably about 10 minutes after that, my dad walks into the room. We didn't hear him. We didn't see the car drive past. We had no clue what just happened. But we were stuck in this lie that we told my dad. And he walked in and he caught us. And he looked at us and said, your integrity is cheap. Your word is really cheap right now to him. And he was so upset he didn't even know what to do. He just went upstairs and started working. But that really hit me as what does your yes and what does your no mean? My scripture for today is in, if this thing will work, is in Matthew 5:33 through 37. And it's Jesus talking about your yes and your no. And he says, again, you have heard it said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord your vows that you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by the heaven or by God's throne or by the earth, for it is the footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make a single hair on your head white or black. All you need to simply say is yes and no. Anything beyond that comes from the evil one. So, what does your yes mean, and what does your no mean? If I tell you that I'm going to do something, and you think that I'm going to do it, and I tell you I'm going to do something, and I don't do it, I'm not being truthful. My word does not mean much to you, if that's what my mindset is. So yes and no, what does it mean? So a lot of people want to, if you don't think a yes or a no is good enough, we make promises, or we make a vow, or we write up a contract so that you know for a fact that your yes is going to be yes. If you promise, if I say, Will, I'm going to give you a car, but I really promise you, because you're like, oh, he's not going to give me a car. But if I say, I promise, that's supposed to mean something else. Why is that supposed to mean something else? As Christians, our yes should be that promise. Our no should be that promise. A lot of times we want to play this game that will say one thing and really mean a different thing. Like I'll say, I'll be there at noon, and it's like 12:15 when I show up. And that's not really a big deal, but that still, we said that we were going to be there at noon, and we showed up a little bit late. Or I say I'm going to do something for you, like, this is bad. But I'll tell Kylie, like she said, I want you to clean this up for me. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And it's like a day later, and she goes, you didn't do this. I'm like, I'm going to do it. Don't worry about it. I'm going to do it. I said I'm going to do it, and eventually I am going to do it. But my yes is really cheap at that moment. When she says, no, I really want you to do it, and I really want you to do it today. And I say, okay, and I still don't do it. But I have every intention of doing it, but it's not when she asked me to. It's not when I really meant for her to think that I was going to do it, but I don't really do it at that time, if that makes sense. We want our yes to be real. We want our yes to be gold in someone's hands as Christians. If someone looks at you and says, that's a man that'll keep his word. That's a woman that will do what she says when she says she'll do it. That's gold to people. People want to hire those kind of people. People want those people to be in charge of things because they know it's going to get done, and they know it's going to get done right because their yes is like gold to them. So that's part of the deception we like to tell people is we like to tell them one thing but really mean a different thing. Wilfred, come over here real quick. I have something. Don't worry, just come right over here. Yeah. Just look at everyone. Okay, so if I'm making a business deal with you and I want to sell you a house, and I tell you it's going to cost $250,000. And I tell you that that's how much it's going to be, and I give you a contract, and you sign it for $250,000, and you get charged $300,000. What am I to you?
A liar.
A liar. Yes, I'm a liar. It took about one time, me and Wilfred, one reaction with each other, and I lied to him, so I'm a liar. It just takes one time. You can go ahead and sit down. Thank you. Give a hand for Wilfred. But our integrity is something very important. It takes just one time for you to lie to somebody or you to deceive somebody to be perceived as a liar to them. That's how big this is. And that's how sometimes I don't think we realize that. We think like one little thing that we deceive somebody or we lie to them. We think it's not that big of a deal, like we were just being like funny or it's just one little thing. But to Wilfred, I'm a liar. Instantly labeled. One interaction with him, I can be somebody he's never met before, and I'm instantly a liar. And what do we think about liars? We don't think very highly of liars. We don't want to be around them. We don't want to have business deals with them. We don't want to even see them because we know when we see them that their yes and their no means nothing. That they will say whatever it takes to get what they want out of a deal or out of anything that you're interacting with them. So we don't want to be friends with those people, and we definitely don't want them as leaders, and we just don't. But Jesus wants us to be a people of a yes and a no of gold. Yeah. He wants us to be able, when we say yes to somebody, that no matter what happens, that yes is going to be yes. And if we say no, it's going to be no. Now, every time that, like, sometimes if we say, like, oh, we're going to be here at this point, and we're a little bit late. It's okay to say, I'll be there soon, or I'll be there in a minute, or I'm running late. It's not a big deal to sometimes be running late. I'm not bashing those people, or somebody that says, I'm going to do it, and it doesn't really happen. It's not always bad to have a little bit of leeway, but it's so important. It's so important to have a yes and a no that means something. So that's my thought for today. So.
Kevin, do you want the mic after that about lateness? Do you want to? He runs a coffee shop downtown, and we know how he feels about late employees. Yes. Yeah. I asked him if he wanted to handle a lateness issue once. He said, "Do you want me to handle it the City on the Hill way or the Dunn Brothers way?" I said, maybe I better talk to him. Oh, well, in my prayers this week, I didn't feel like I should prepare anything, so I'm looking forward to see what God does spontaneously among us today. If you haven't been here before, every service is different, of course, but sometimes we we plan things out, and sometimes we just let the Holy Spirit inspire us spontaneously, and both things are very blessed and have been very good. Of course, maybe today will be the first one that isn't, Yeah, oh no. Okay, I'll just sit down now. Oh, this is so depressing. No, I'm kidding. On the way down here, somebody called me, and I believe this kind of ties in with what you were talking about, Elijah. Having integrity. Somebody called me and apologized to me. It was very simple. They said, "Hey, I was wrong about this, and I was wrong about the way I spoke to you about it, and I just wanted to apologize." And I said, "Yeah, okay, thanks. Well, I'm sorry if I was a little hard about that too." And it was done. And I just kind of thought, it's such a small thing, but it's a big thing. That's an integrity thing, right? There's a thing they talk about in the 12 steps about a daily inventory, and because one of the first things I guess that you do, I haven't done it all, but I've been around it, is I don't remember which step it is, but you look at your life where you've hurt people, things that you feel bad about, things that you've done wrong, and you go and you make restitution to those people, and you try to make things right as best you can. And then later on it says, endeavor to keep those things clean. It's like cleaning the house and then, doing the daily cleaning. And I thought about that apology. It's such a simple little thing, and it takes some courage, I think, to do that. But it's like kind of like be like a little paper cut or something. Sometimes in our relationships we can get just a little cut. Just a little like, I didn't think you really handled that very good, or and then the next time maybe it can build up, and it gets deeper. You cut it a little deeper, and if we don't clean these things up between each other, pretty soon. And sometimes we don't even know what's happened. We'll have forgotten about those things. We'll just kind of have a bad feeling about people or those people or something like that. We'll just kind of have a bad vibe. And many times we don't. Those little incidents were so insignificant, at least to us. Sometimes we even forget about them, and it can really cause a lot of issues. And so I was thinking about making things right today. And I thought, maybe some of us have some things we need to make right. I'd just like for you to think about that this week and today. Like maybe there's something that God's going to put his finger on. God's putting his finger on already. The great thing about talking in this environment is that, I don't have to say everything, or we don't have to do everything right, because the Holy Spirit will convict where we need to be convicted. The Holy Spirit will speak the words into the hearts of each of us as only he can. And so, and I was thinking about the things that Jesus said about making things right with your brother, that it was even more important than coming to the altar before God. In other words, it's almost like when Jesus says, if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that you have a problem with your brother or your sister, if there's something there, go make things right with them first and then come to me, because there's going to be blockage. Our relationship with God and our relationship with people, it's the cross. It's together. It's reflective of one another. We can't. Is it in 1 John? How can you say you love God if you love not your brother? If you're letting something fester there. See, that person that called me apologized to me. He loved me enough to do that. He loved himself enough to do that. Because those things can begin to mess with lots of different different aspects of your life, your relationship with God and your relationship with others. And so I encourage you, in your life, take a daily inventory. Where did I not treat somebody right this week? Do I owe someone an apology this week? Is there something I need to make right before I come to the Lord? We were talking about Jacob and Esau on Wednesday night. And, Jacob very easily, if you know the story, maybe I'll give a little background of the story. So Jacob and Esau are twins. And, well, I didn't plan on telling this whole story, so there's a lot to tell. What do I want to accent? When they're growing up, Esau's the older. They're twins, but he came out second, so he's the older. So he's supposed to get the birthright. He's supposed to get all the stuff, all his father's stuff. And but his mom prefers Jacob. Jacob is the smart guy who dwells in tents. Esau is the kind of rough hunter guy. Somebody once called him like the captain of the football team sort of guy. And Jacob's kind of the intellectual. And anyway, his mother prefers Jacob, and so she arranges this thing where Jacob tricks his father into giving him Esau's birthright. Are you following me? So then Jacob goes on in his life and does all kinds of stuff, but he leaves this thing with his brother out there messed up. It's out there messed up. And I think it's messing with him all along. That he did this thing. He basically cheated his brother, and he didn't make it right, and it's haunting him. He's leaving Laban's house some 25 years later or whatever, and he's worried about Esau. You see, he didn't do right. And he probably thought, I was thinking about this, you know how we justify all our stuff? Jacob probably was thinking, oh, well, it was my mom. It's my mom's fault. It's that mama you gave me, right? Yeah, a lot of times we'll justify ourselves. And some of it's true. It was his mom, but he took part. We take part in things sometimes that are wrong, and we'll blame other people for it. We're like, well, they're the ones really. I mean, I was innocent. Aren't we innocent in our story? Oh, man. Well, I always was. I'm trying. I still am a lot of the time. I'm trying to own up, man. It's about manning up, owning up to, and sometimes we really have to dig in and be real honest. I had this experience years ago. I did a terrible thing, and I was so justified. I was playing in this band, and I was making, $45 a night, and it was a death gig in the San Fernando Valley. That's what we called them, the bad gigs that you'd take only when you couldn't get anything better. And so I was only in that band until I got something better that was making $100 a night playing weddings or something else. I was looking in the recycler, the one ads, but I just had to make my rent. So, but this band, they really wanted to be a band, They were like really serious about it. They were horrible. Oh, is this on tape? They were really bad. And the gig was terrible, but they were really into it, and they wanted me to be a part of what they were doing. And I was really just in there just until I could find anything better. So I find something better, but it's only on like Friday and Saturday night. So I play the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then I get a sub. I do everything right. I'm trying to do everything right. I give them plenty of notice. I give them 2 weeks notice, and try to do everything right. So what happens is they tell me to come in Saturday night. They get paid in cash at the venue on Saturday night. So I go and I play my casuals. That's what musicians call bar mitzvahs and weddings and stuff like that, and I make better money. And so, but then I show up for my pay for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And they say to my face, they say, oh, you didn't ask how much the sub was going to get paid. So he gets paid $110 a night. Here's your $20. I couldn't believe it. I was outraged. I was like, I was speechless. I don't think I'd ever had anybody do anything like that to me before. I didn't know what to do. I like, there was all these people around, you know, it's the end of the night at a bar, you know, I was like, not going to start a fight with these people. What am I going to do? So I did a really smart thing. I went outside and I drove around really fast. I did. I drove around really fast. I was just so mad. I was like, Argh. So then I go home and I'm living with these dudes. I'm a partying bachelor guy in a partying bachelor house. And I got these two big dudes that are living with me. And they're like, well, they still got that money, don't they? They just got paid. They got all that cash, right? I'm like, well, yeah, they do. Well, let's go to their house. The next morning, we go to their house and try to get the money, and one of the guys starts getting all bad and starts, like, breaking in, like they're trying to close the door on us, and it starts getting really ugly. We wind up, like, running away while they're throwing rocks at us, like, oh, my God. And they took us to court, and one of the guys was like a professional guy, didn't want to take any risks and just paid it off. We wound up like paying them like $1,000 or something like that. I mean, it was a total disaster. And I always thought, why? What a horrible thing. Why did this happen? But as about a year later, I started to think, how was I responsible for that? Like sometimes it can really help us if we start to look at the bad things that happen. Sometimes there's something in there that will help us to own it. And one of the things was, they were mad at me because I was quitting, and they really liked me, and they were trying to build something, and I was really not being honest with them. And I thought about that. Like with Jacob and Esau and making things right. And so at the end of the Jacob and Esau story, Jacob has a kind of spiritual awakening, and at least I believe he did. And he goes to his brother and basically bows down to him and says, you know, I'm your servant, and you know, basically apologizes and humbles himself before his brother, and his brother says, hey, it's fine. Now here's Jacob, probably been tormented about this thing for a long time. You know, sometimes maybe some of you in here are really privately tortured about something that may be some hurt, some terrible thing, something much deeper and worse than what I just talked about. You know, maybe something really rough either happened to you or you did something rough. I just encourage you to make it right. A lot of times if we'll humble ourselves, you know, that Jacob spends that whole night like tormented, having, you know, he's just sweating drops of blood. He's so worried about this. A lot of times if we will actually be bold enough to go and say, hey, I was wrong. I really, I shouldn't have done that. I don't even know where those people are, but I should make it right with them that I wasn't being honest with them from the beginning, really. And then a lot of times we'll find that it just goes poof. Have you ever had God do that in your life? Where there's some big thing that's looming and you're just like tortured over it, and you finally feel God at your back, just like, go and talk to those people. Go make it right with those people. Go, and you're just like, oh, God, I don't even want to see those people. Sometimes there's such a problem. You don't even, it's like, oh, man, I can't even be in the same room as those people, right? Have you guys been there? And then if God's in it, and I believe he's in it today, if you go to them with the right heart, with a prayerful heart, and with love in your heart, and speak the truth as best you can. It may just go, and just Satan be gone. It's just gone. It's amazing how apologies, forgiveness, mountains in your life can be erased in a breath, in a few words. We had a thing in our family that was insurmountable. It was epic. And it went without words, just with a few tears. Amen? Hallelujah. That's all I have today. Would anybody like to say anything? We have a lot of guests. You're also welcome. Anything. We want to hear whatever's on your heart, whatever God's placed in your heart and in your life, and we'd like to hear today.
Hey, everybody. It's really good to see everyone. I always look forward to Sundays and Wednesdays to see. Not Mondays. Yeah, I had to skip. No, and in fact, this past Monday was a rough one. I don't know exactly what I'm going to talk about, but I have a few ideas. One is, I did talk to Neil Sunday after church, and was having a bad couple of days. And Monday was a bad day. It was a rainy day. And I was thinking a lot about the gray days, and months like January. Some people don't do so good in months like that. It doesn't mean you have seasonal affective disorder. You can just have had enough of the gray days. It can feel bad to anyone. You know, it's not just, wow, I get depressed in January. You know, I'm isolated a lot. No one's going outside. The weather's bad. I feel down. I don't want to get out of bed. And we're not alone in that. You know, it's one interesting thing about me getting up here and starting to speak in front of a group is I look back at myself on the tape, and I've never seen myself videotaped. And the first few times I got up and talked about some very personal things, and I thought, wow, that's too much, you know, to get up and say something so personal. It seems too big, too many big words and too much personal information. And I look back at the video, I'm like, you're just a person who's trying, and you're having feelings like everybody else, nothing unique. It's important, because all of our feelings are important, the good ones and the bad ones. But to look at myself, I'm like, I am like everyone else. I have good days and bad days. I have hard times and good times. And thinking on the past, I dwelled a lot in the negative, and I've had a lot of bad things happen to me, just like a lot of people. But I have a chance. We all wake up with a chance to have a better day. And I thought, you know, it's great to have people you can trust and who you can speak to, because letting it out and having it reflected back, it's not that bad, Val. You know, someone's like, yeah, I feel what you're feeling. I understand it. I've been there. And we talked Wednesday about, we went around and talked about our weeks. And I got to my week and I said, I've had a few bad days, but what I'm learning now that I didn't think about in the past is how to change my focus. And I completely forgot I'd said that until it got around to Todd, and he repeated back, Valerie said something about changing your focus. And I thought I did, you know? And when you watch yourself back on a videotape, or you hear someone repeat back something that sounded good to you, it's like, I came up with that? Maybe I have more knowledge in my arsenal. Maybe I am getting somewhere with all of this. Maybe this is starting to make sense to me. And maybe I do have the ability to change my focus And I said, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and start my day better. And I got up. The first thing I did was I thought, what am I grateful for? Because someone said to me Monday, after I had a bad day Sunday and I had a bad day Monday, they said, what are you grateful for? And I knew that I felt grateful a couple of days ago, but it's like those gray days. It's all or nothing. When you're in the bad times, it's easy to think it's always going to be bad. It's always been bad, and it's going to be bad tomorrow and until the day I die. And then you're having a good day. I wake up today, it's beautiful. I feel great. I can't imagine that I felt so bad just a few days before. And the focus is the most important thing. It's training your thoughts to find God. And one of the things is getting to know yourself. Where do you find God? I find it in music. Some people don't. A lot of people do, and that's why it's so popular. And that's why people will love your music, for example. And how lucky am I to have a pastor who also creates this incredible music that I can listen to day to day. And it's what brought me here. It's really what brought me here. I thought, if Neil has this message and I can listen to his message and the music that he writes, I'd like to hear what he has to say when he's standing up in front in a church. And it's helped me so much. And the friendship of everyone here and the trust that I have with everyone here has made all the difference. And so now, instead of dwelling in the depression and the anxiety and the negativity, I think, let's start thinking about the things that have worked. Things that have worked all my life, like music. Focus on it. Put on some music that makes you happy. Get up, put on some music. If you like nature, go for a walk. If you love flowers, look at flowers. If you love animals, hold your pets. Talk to your friends. Don't dwell in the negative. Change your focus. Focus on God. And it's going to have a little bit of a different meaning to everyone, I think. Part of coming in and coming from an atheistic background is, how do I know when I got there? And I don't think that anyone does arrive, at that special place. And I think that's the trick, is we all think, if I find this husband, or I find this partner, or I find this job, or I find, or if I take this prescription, I'm going to feel better, and then it's always going to be great. But I think that the beauty in faith for me is knowing that it's okay. You're going to have bad days, but you can wake up the next day. I have faith that tomorrow's going to be better, and I have a community of people that are going to show me that as well. So I just challenge everyone to make sure, if you're having a bad day, maybe you could think about some of the things that I've said today and change your focus and find something that you love to do. And it's okay if you're having a bad day, it's okay. Just make sure you eat right and get some sleep and give yourself a chance for the next day to be a better one. God says to me, can I get some help? Can you, when I got baptized, all he said to me in his message was, take care of yourself for once, for the first time in your life. Take care of yourself. And it doesn't happen overnight. And it's taking me a while, but I'm at least going to give him a chance to find me. Because if you're overwhelmed with anxiety, chaos, if you're comfortable living in it, because that's all you've known is the craziness, and you seem comfortable there, so you drift towards it, and you sit in it for years and years thinking this is absolutely normal. And you get out of it and you find some peace somewhere. And I found it here with church, where I could get a little bit of peace and settle things down. I've gotten to know myself a lot better, and the way that I can make myself feel good and connect with a higher source, and try to do some imagery and think about things like I read, picture yourself filled, like God will fill you completely with crystal clear, beautiful water. You're so full of this godly water, this pure water, that nothing bad can penetrate you. Nothing bad can come in. You're filled with good. Yeah. So if someone does challenge you in a negative way, like you're telling your story about these guys that affected you, or say you have a relationship or a brother or sister that, will offend you, get under your skin, It's easy to be triggered and respond negatively or in a way that's not going to make things better. Even if you're trying to explain yourself, some people don't want to know. And it's hurtful when they don't really want to know your reasoning or your justification, as valid as it is, because they've got an agenda, which is to start something. But if you're filled with goodness, don't let it burrow in, and then act back in a loving way. And they can't take it to the next level. They can't get to you in a negative way because you're only going to do yourself a disservice and the other person. Show them a better way. Show them what you found out for yourself. It may not mean anything to them. It may mean something to them down the road. It may never mean anything to them, but at least you haven't compromised who you are as a Christian in the process. And so anyway, thank you for listening. I'm so glad to see everyone. Love you.
Neil brought up a couple things that are important to me, at least. One of them, obviously, with the 12 steps. Integrity is something that the 12 steps tries to teach, but you don't learn it if you don't listen. One of the things I was thinking of as you were talking, there's a phrase that we used to have at the tables I would go to, AA tables. Conversations with an idiot. I used to have a lot of conversations with an idiot. That idiot's right up here. And it's about letting go and really letting yourself be free of those thoughts and of the people you have harmed them, and asking for that forgiveness, like you were talking about. I had thought of a quote because it really applies to things that I'm going through in my life right now. And it's from Jeremiah 25. "But you did not listen to me, announces the Lord. You have made me very angry with the gods your hands have made, and you have brought harm on yourselves." Well, to me that applies right into what you were talking about, making that inventory of your own self and trying to right those wrongs. And it's amazing what can happen when you do. And sometimes you don't even have to go to the person, depending on the wrong. You can just write it down and ask for that forgiveness. So it's important to ask. It's really important to ask, because you're right, it'll just eat at your heart. And I can tell you, there have been a lot of things in my life that have really ate at my heart, and still to this day. So I just wanted to kind of share that.
When you were saying what you did, telling that story, Neil, I mean, my mind went back many years ago. I was a young man in my 20s, and I worked at a steel shop. And there was this guy that worked there who absolutely did not like me. I mean, no matter what I did, I could not get a smile out of that guy. He always had snide remarks, and it just really bothered me. And he wouldn't cooperate with me either. It just really bugged me. What I did there is I would be given projects, and I'd go out and measure railing or fencing, come back, put together the shop drawings, and the shop would put them together. I would coordinate with the contractor in the field about the stuff that I did for them, and then I would talk to this gentleman about getting a schedule. Hey, when can you have this stuff done? So I had a job, and it just so happens that this guy that I was working with was a friend of mine. And he really needed this piece of fencing installed in order to get his inspection. And he needed it done like the next day. So I said, hey, no problem. I'll go talk with this guy, and we'll get it taken care of for you. Went and talked to the guy. He wouldn't give me the time of day. He wouldn't even acknowledge that I was asking him for something. It was driving me crazy. My friend calls me back, said, hey, can that be done? I'm like, well, I'm still working on it. Let me get back with you. So this went on all day. He ignored me. He would just give me dirty looks, never say anything. So I was getting really nervous. So in a fit of anger, I went and I took my pickup. I drove out in the back. I took the piece of fence and I put it in it myself. When I drove it out there, I went to the site, put it in place and tied it up there. It wasn't even welded in place. I went home. There. The next morning, I'm at my desk. It's the time of the day when the rigging trucks come in to pick up the work that they're going to do for the day. I'm working on some work, making a few phone calls, and then who darkens my door but this man? And he had some paperwork in his hand, and he had two installers standing there with him. Where's this fence? I said, well, you wouldn't tell me whether or not you were going to do it, so I took it out there and put it in myself. He just took the paperwork, threw it up in the air, turned around and walked away. And I just served him right. That's what I thought. Jerk. But then, man, Spirit of God's a funny thing, isn't it? God started convicting me. You were wrong. Like, I was not wrong. Did you ever argue with God? I'm like, he was wrong. He wouldn't even talk to me. I'm just doing my job. You were wrong. That was not your place. So this went on for a while. Lord said, you need to go apologize to him. Apologize to him? He should be apologizing to me, you know. I'm going through this whole, conversation in my mind with God. And God's like, come on, man. You know I'm right. Oh, man. You're God. Of course you're right. So I got up, man. It took every ounce of strength in my body. But I got up and I walked down the hallway, longest walk of my life. Came to his doorway. He heard me coming. He just kind of looked over his shoulder and stood back down at his desk. I said, hey, man, I'm sorry. I was wrong. It wasn't my place to do that. I apologize. Man, I'm sorry. He looked back at me and said, okay. And that was it. I actually felt a burden lift for me when I did that. Yeah. Now, we didn't become best buddies after this, okay? I don't want to put out false hopes for anybody out there who may be going through similar situations, but that did change our relationship after that. He wasn't as ugly to me, and he was actually much more cooperative. I actually could see a change in him. And, pride's a funny thing, isn't it? It's a funny thing. And we so often want to think that, we're in the right. And, it does something to our spirits. It really does. And when I look back on that, I could see what a bitter pill it was for me to swallow that day. And I think that's why that James wrote, God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Right. And I felt his grace that day when I gave in to this Holy Spirit saying, hey, man, come on, do this. It's right. Do this. And it changed something to me that day. So I just wanted to share that with you today. If you're going through something similar, work with the Lord. He'll give you the strength, and you'll know what the right thing is to do.
Yeah, amen.
But we did this song a few weeks ago. Can we get the lyrics up just 1 second? That last one about the reckless love. Yeah. When we did it, and I said, I recognized at the beginning when we got to the bridge, when we were practicing it before church, I suddenly am like, I'm going to have to say something during this song. So when I realized it was this song, I'm like, I'm too tired. But everybody else is saying kind of the same thing that I was thinking with this song. And what got me is when, okay, there's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up coming after me. I picture whoever was speaking, Elijah or somebody was saying, I don't know who was saying it, but we've got this great God, and he's pursuing us. I mean, that's a really hard concept to understand or to conceive, because it's like, that's so unlikely that somebody would pursue me, who would care enough about somebody that, doesn't matter. But when it said, there's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down coming after me, he won't give up. And what that made me think of is an old concept that some of us were raised with out of Revelation about the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. So when I was a little kid, this is so awful. This is a repentance time here. But when I was a kid, it's like, the church Jesus built, and we're going to the bad guys, and that's all the bad guys are all the people that don't go to our church, You know what I mean? And I don't think that I was the only child that thought that. I started an argument with a first grader. I went to church on a school on a Monday. I don't know what I heard on Sunday, but I walked up to my friend Jamie and said, my church is going to heaven and yours is not. Well, that's no way to save anybody. So she was probably more saved than I was, because she's like, And she didn't hit me or anything. But what the gates of hell will not prevail is not that, I pictured us in a defense mode. And I kept thinking we will prevail in a defense mode, but it's in an offensive mode, but not like that. The offensive mode, and this is so hard because right after I gave this testimony, it was probably the most inspired almost I've ever been in my life. And I proceeded to go through probably the hardest 3 to 4 weeks I've ever experienced in my life. So I don't want to get that inspired today because I don't want to relive it. Because I was like, oh, you were preaching to you. It's like, don't do that. I'm sorry, I'm not telling you now. But if you think about, there's no wall you won't kick down. Some people are afraid of grace, because grace, I used to think grace was like, they talk about grace is you do whatever you want and you're going to heaven anyway. But grace in its purest form can't be denied. If when you went to repent to that man, that was grace. It wasn't. Maybe you owed him a repentance. If God said, I'm not going to argue with him. But let's say that you did the right thing to start with, and you just gave him something. I had something happen at work, and anybody who knows me, I'm very loud and outgoing, and I just lay down and take it very easily. And when I started work, there was this one lady. This is a group of us, and I'm an assistant to a high-position person, and it was all of his direct reports, so I kind of have to keep them in line for him. Well, there was this one lady, for whatever reason, did not like me. There's always one. It's like, what? How could you not like me? It's like, what? But she's very similar to me in personality, loud, so maybe I was louder than her, and she didn't like it. I don't know. But she just didn't like anything I did. But I started seeing some of my boss's direct reports, and I won't tell you exactly who I work for, Valerie, so you can't repeat this. But some of his direct reports were having difficulty getting raises and promotions. They were fighting his division badly. And I started watching the paperwork, and I thought, I think I can help with this. If you want to get to somebody, go tell them, I think I can get you some money. Suddenly you have friends. But I showed up, I walked down, and I didn't go with his blessing, but I wasn't doing anything against him, so I don't think he would have gotten mad. And he started having me process this paperwork, and I started helping people get this stuff through. And she had just been rejected again. She was at the point of tears. And I went to her office, and I said, listen, he doesn't know I'm here, but I think I know how to get your paperwork through for what you're asking for your people. And I said, if you'll work with me and give me what I ask for and let me redo it, and then you give me, let's work, I think we can make this work. And she knows that she had been directly mean to me. There was an event, and I won't go into it, but right after I started, she was mad at our boss, and he was trying to get her to do what he wanted, and she just wouldn't do it. And one day he put his foot down, and she took it out on me. I showed up at my office, and there was a pile of junk to put away that was taller than I was, because she'd clean out a room she didn't want to clean out, just threw it on a thing and stuck it. And I worked by the executives, and it sat there a week because I was in Scotland that week. When I came back to that, somebody said, yeah, somebody got mad. Like, who'd you make mad? That's not how they said it. And so I quietly just put all that stuff away, and I knew where it came from. I knew who it was, and I never said a word about it till later. And when I started helping her, it came up, and I'm like, I wondered, and she's like, yeah. She said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. So I got an apology. Well, then when I started helping her get these raises, she gradually started changing, and she didn't ask me for it. But I saw that there was a need, and I'm like, I just did it. It wasn't like maybe I'll make her like me. I just did it because it was a need. But I gave her something that in the grand scheme of things, you would say, well, she didn't deserve for you to do that to her. Because that's what God does for me every day, something that I don't deserve for him to do to me. That's grace. That's all great. That's grace. And grace people cannot deny. I mean, there will be very few, I believe, that can look grace in the face and say, I reject that kind of pure love. I reject it. People can't do it. And what wound up happening the following Christmas, I even had cookies on my desk from Trader Joe's. I mean, and I'm like, and she's like, I thought you might like these. And this is the lady that didn't like me. But I showed her grace, and it wasn't me, trust me. I don't take credit, and I'm not testifying to this because I'm a good person, because that's the whole point. I'm not. But I had been feeling, and it's like, give it to her anyway. And the situation turned. Now in the meeting, she'll smile at me. She asked me for help. It changed. I don't really know if she likes me or if she thinks I'll just help her. And it really doesn't matter, because it's created peace in our work atmosphere. Yeah. And that is what when it talks about him coming after me, sometimes you'll get the voice, Ron. I've heard that voice, and sometimes it's telling me you should do this, and other times it's when I'm very low. And I had something happen last week, and I can't talk about it, but there was something out of the blue. I was just at the end of the rope again, and I'm like, I'm tired of being and living at the end of my rope. I'm tired of this. I'm going to do this, 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 and this, and this, and bam, and I'm just going to give up and I'll go somewhere else. And out of nowhere, I got a text, and I was in Trader Joe's. I live my life there. I was in the checkout, and somebody was telling the story, and I'm like, excuse me, I got to go out and make a call. And I can't tell you what the text is. Ask me in a couple years, and I'll tell you what the text is. But it was so profoundly, awesomely sweet, life-changing. If you would have said, list all the things that you want God to do for you, this thing would have I wouldn't have even known to ask for it at the top. And that's what it was. And I was praying for all these other things. And as I walked out of the store, I was texting back going, how? What? How did this happen? And I felt a quiet, I've got a surprise for you. And how would I have come up with that phrase? But what it made me think of was, of all the things I could have asked for, he didn't solve my money problems. He didn't solve this problem and this one. But he gave me something that so outshined that it's been holding me for this last week. It's like, but you got that. Wow. You got that. And I didn't deserve it. And like when I think about it even still, it makes me cry because I wasn't expecting it and I had no idea. It was sitting there just waiting for me to find out about. And so I'm like, I've got this little ray of hope in my life. But to tie back into Revelation, the gates of hell will not prevail against the church Jesus built. What Jesus built was a foundation of knowledge that the world cannot reject pure love or pure grace. It ties in with what every one of you guys have said. they can't look it in the eye. The gates of hell cannot prevail against that. And so when we're singing this song, there's no wall you won't kick down, what that really means is somebody on this planet is going to hear his voice and come to your rescue, Julie. When you're low about something that happens at school and you're like, I don't even want to do this anymore because this is so devastating. Somebody is going to come up to you and be your answer, and God's going to kick down a wall to send them to you to be your answer, or to be your answer when you're like, I don't know why I even try. We are the answer. We are what God kicks the wall down with. Somebody's going to have to tear down a lie, and it may be at our expense. That's grace. He gave me grace. I have to give it to you. Please don't give me another January. God, I can't take, please don't. Now, I saw somebody posted on Facebook, and they said, oh, it was so funny. I laughed so hard. And it said, January was the longest year I've ever lived through. And it was, is this really January 87th? You know, the date? It was like it just didn't. It was the month from hell. Pardon me. It's in the Bible. It's not a bad word. But it was a month from hell for me. And so, but he gave me right at the end, it's like just last week, it was actually February, it wasn't January. But when he gave me that, it's like, just hang on. I'm giving you stuff you're not even asking for. You're going to be okay. Maybe not the way you think you're going to be okay, but he's going to be kicking down walls for you, and then he's going to expect you to kick down a wall to get to somebody else. But that's him in us, and it's grace, and it's how it works. And thank you.